Today, we're looking at a brown ink from Wancher, Asuka Brown. Hi, I'm Adam, and I'm an ink guy. I get inks, test them, and share the results with you. And if you like videos like that, I would invite you to subscribe. You can also follow me on Instagram, and there's timestamps down below so that if you are in a hurry, you can skip around. But if you got the time, I'd appreciate you checking out the entire video. To make sure I have a range of experience with this ink, I do the writing samples. I then put the ink into this pilot vanishing point, wrote with it for a day, and used it to take the notes for this video. I standardized my first writing sample by using Clairfontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper on all of the tests that I do. I do use other papers, and some of those will show up later in the video. Now, let's look at the writing sample. I have this ink in the only way I know how to get it, bottle form, and to keep my writing sample consistent, I use a Jinhao 159 with a Goulet 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X450 with a Goulet medium, and a Jinhao X750 with a Goulet extra fine. Let's take a look at the Clairfontaine. We get no bleeding, not really, no ghosting. There's a couple spots that look like they're just a little dark in with the stub. The 1.1 stub has no feather spread, halo, sheen, no shade. The extra fine is quite a bit lighter than the stub, with no feather spread, halo, sheen, or shade, 9 seconds to dry. The medium is darker than the extra fine, not quite as dark as the stub, with no feather spread, halo, sheen, no shade, 12 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show us really no color variation. We didn't expect it, and we didn't get it. Tomoe River. No bleeding, normal Tomoe River ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade. The extra fine is slightly lighter, ever so slightly lighter than the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade, 16 seconds to dry. The medium is darker than the extra fine, about the same tone as the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade, 29 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show us no color variation. We didn't expect it, and we didn't get it. And then Rhodia. No bleeding and no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade. The extra fine slightly lighter than the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade, 9 seconds to dry. Medium is darker than the extra fine, about the same tone as the stub again, with no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade, 16 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show us really no color variation. We didn't expect it, and we didn't get it. I agree with Vita that I've learned a lot by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. I put a line of ink down and immediately put it into water for 10 to 15 seconds. And we see this kind of brown permanent line across the bottom, a light brown. It pushes up with a magenta and then a very bright blue line across the top. The one on the right I let dry for 10 minutes before I dunk it into water. And it really looks the same. If it wasn't for the D that I put on the filter paper, you might not be able to tell the difference between the two. Resistance tests are done to see how well this ink can be expected to perform on the page, and more importantly, how hard it may be to clean from your pen. I let the smear dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, don't use this in a note-taking situation, and let's just leave it at that on this one. Water is lifting some of the dark tones, but leaving an awful lot of ink behind. It just doesn't feel like it's gonna be enough to get this out of your pen. And Pen Flush does everything that water does and nothing more. There's not a difference. So you might need to turn towards the 1/3 bleach solution, which does completely remove it from the page. There is a little bit of staining still left behind on the paper, but I do think that if you use that and then progress down to Pen Flush and down to water, making sure that you completely flush the 1/3 bleach solution out, that you're not going to have any kinds of real problems with it staining your pens. I haven't had problems with it. I do believe that these Wancher inks are pigmented inks. For the inks I've tested, I have found an average viscosity of 2.5, with a realm of normal being from 2.1 to 2.9. Now I'm going to link the video that shows how I do my testing and calculations. Wancher Original Asuka Brown has a viscosity of 2.42, making it normal. To find my average dry times, I use my writing samples done on Clairfontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper. I average those. Now for the inks I've tested, I have found an average dry time of 17 seconds, with the realm of normal being from 13 to 21 seconds. Wancher Original Asuka Brown has an average dry time of 15 seconds, making it again normal. Instead of finding inks that look like Wancher Original's Asuka Brown, I would prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page, and I wanted a nice magenta with this. I chose Diamine's Deep Magenta. The second writing sample is done on Moleskine, Northbooks, and Moleskine. Here we're looking at Fabriano Eco Qua paper. We get no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. The extra fine, as has been normal, is slightly lighter than the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade, 5 seconds to dry. The medium, as we've frequently seen, is darker than the extra fine, same tone as the stub, with no feather spread, halo, sheen, or shade, and 9 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show us no color variation, and we didn't get any. Northbooks, not a paper that always does great with fountain pen inks. We do see that there's some spots where it's starting to bleed deep in, but it does not touch the back of the page. It doesn't touch the page underneath. The ghosting that occurs from it might stop you, might not stop you. It is totally up to you. At that point, I don't see the ghosting as too bad. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. The extra fine is still lighter than the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade, 2 seconds to dry. The medium is darker than the extra fine and the same tone as the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade, still 2 seconds to dry. Very fast drying on this paper, very absorbent paper. The scrubby for both show us no color variation. We didn't expect it, and we didn't get it. Last up is Moleskine. Now, Moleskine paper had a lot of bleeding spots. Not the kind of bleeding spots that touch the page underneath, making it so that you can't use it, but enough bleeding spots that you could not use the back of the page, which means that it winds up with a lot of ghosting because of that. Now, the medium at the top has feathering. A lot of feathering all over, but a lot of tiny feathering. And not the kind of feathering that would stop you from being able to use this. Not so distracting you couldn't read your note on this type of paper to yourself. No spread, halo, sheen, or shade. The extra fine is basically the same tone as the medium. It has tiny feathering all over it, but it's the kind of tiny feathering that makes it look like it's got jagged edges all over it, like if you look at the word lazy. So there is a lot of feathering here. Again, it wouldn't stop me from being able to use these notes if I took it, if I used this ink on this paper, but this would work. No spread, halo, sheen, no shade, 1 second to dry. Great for a pocket notebook. The scrubby shows us no color variation. We didn't expect it, we didn't get it, and that is all that I have for the writing sample. So what do I think of Wancher's Asuka Brown? It's too dark for me to the point that it's a brown-black. It left me uninterested, even though it has something about it that's nice when it's much, much broader, and yet I don't like looking at it. I don't know what to say there. So what pen and nib would give the best writing experience with this ink? A drier pen gives you the chance to really see the brown that makes up this ink, where a wet pen puts too much down and makes it far too dark to enjoy the color that it's promising. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, and if it's your first time here, I'm going to remind you, if you enjoyed it, subscribe. Thanks for watching.